Spreading false information online reduces your social credit score. By the way, the World Economic Forum, when you look at their agenda that they're meeting right now, the top bullet point of their agenda is that the greatest present risk in our world today is misinformation, actual debanking of politically incorrect figures. Genocides and hard tyrannies start with movements like this. This is from the CCP 2014 founding document. The goal of these systems is to allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step. And we might say, well, that can never come here. This is a free society. Revelation 13 begs to differ. Be ye also ready. And I can be ready in the righteousness of Christ right now. Now, from social control to social credit. Have you heard of the social credit system in China? This has made Western press. It's significant. You're familiar with this concept of a credit score, the FICO score. You pay your bills, your score goes up, you're credit worthy, you get loans. In China, it goes way beyond that to a score for all of your behaviors, like even things like sorting your recycling properly and not jaywalking. And it's basically a system that's trying to grasp all the citizens of China into a dragnet, into a database to prove their trustworthiness in social life, broadly speaking. There are 700 million surveillance cameras in the nation of China. That's half as many people as there are in China. And the Mandarin term for credit goes beyond our understanding of the word with financial. It goes to one's morality. And so here we have legislating morality, if you will, instead of self-government, one of the highest values in the West, or you say it was once one of the highest values in the West. And you see in China people who don't visit their aging parents regularly or play a lot of video games, which we'd like to be in that group, but you get minus points by the state here. Remaining debt-free and volunteering for community service are two ways to raise your points in some localities. There are many social credit systems in China as plural. There's not one yet, but in other cases, behavioral data on social media and e-commerce platforms has played in, and who one's friends are on social media plays in to your score, whether you have a high or low social credit score. One city of 2.8 million people penalized individuals for inappropriate comments online. This one should sound familiar. Spreading false information online reduces your social credit score. By the way, the World Economic Forum, when you look at their agenda that they're meeting right now, the top bullet point of their agenda is that the greatest present risk in our world today is, you fill in the blank. Nuclear war. It's like you could have a few. Misinformation is the greatest threat to our world right now. Basically saying things the World Economic Forum disagrees with is the greatest threat to our world. So higher scores in China get you better healthcare, better access to public housing, better schools, lower taxes, shorter wait times at the hospital, access to public sector jobs, access to mortgages, or you could state all those in reverse. A lower score, you don't get the mortgage, you don't get the public sector job, you're at the back of the line at the hospital with lower care, back of the bus you go. You see a stratification forming here, a demonizing of and other, those on the lower end of the social spectrum. Higher taxes, worse schools and housing, etc. And also the bad kids are regulated to economy class seating on the flights and the trains, prohibited in some cases even from buying property, which people would be apologists of it would say, well, it's not mandatory, it's not all, overreaching. But if you don't play the game, you're losing more and more privileges. So not mandatory is setting that bar for freedom pretty low. It's kind of like when the mandates were happening. I read in a publication here, it said, well, this is not mandates, but you know what? If you choose not to, then you might not have a job. And at that point, that's playing with words. But even manners, like eating on public transport, can affect your score in some places. Several provinces have used big screens in public places to expose and shame people, as well as personalized dial tones so that when somebody calls you, if you're a debtor who hasn't paid his bills, they will hear that you are about to talk to an untrustworthy person. This is from the CCP 2014 founding document. The goal of these systems, is to allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step. And we might say, well, that can never come here. This is a free society. Revelation 13 begs to differ. It's going to go global from here in America. And it could be covert social control that we've already been studying this evening, but the overt is already happening as well in the form of cancel culture, which is a term that I think diminishes the significance of this. Terms like woke and politically correct and cancel culture to me, they don't really communicate the gravity of what we're talking about. Genocides and hard tyrannies start with movements like this, the demonization campaigns, the canceling, etc. We live in a increasingly regressive era, an illiberal era. And just take universities as an example. When I was in academia not that long ago, universities were actually legitimately liberal in ideals, meaning the message is don't trust the self-proclaimed experts. Psalm 146, put not your trust in princes. Question everything. Free thought, open dialogue. Be a nonconformist when necessary. But now with what seems like a quasi-religious devotion to a politically correct dogma, in this ironic name of diversity and tolerance, you get no tolerance for diversity of thought. The most important diversity there is, freedom of speech and thought. Emotional outrage trumps reason. Dialogue is banished. Dissent is maligned as hate. And a newly invented human right, apparently the right to not be offended, overrules freedom of speech, which is a religious freedom to go and speak God's word and speak truth. So there's, instead of traditional biblical values, there's an imposition of a counterfeit values system rooted in cultural Marxism, and it becomes a straitjacket upon the mind and upon the conduct and upon the speech, kind of like Puritans, right? Is this the illiberal, regressive new Puritanism? And it's not just speech controls that are applied. These things tend then toward economic sanctions, which is a precedent to no buy, no sell, and things coming out in the future. Say maybe individuals have been fired or not hired or not promoted at their jobs because they don't align. How about no jab, no job? Taking away payment processors. This has actually happened for thought crimes, removing privileges to use Uber, Airbnb, and other real-world applications. Actual debanking of politically incorrect figures. You could find in the hundreds stories of this thing under this not very scary sounding name, cancel culture, where people are deplatformed from social media because they're prominent opponents of the narrative, or they're shadow banned on social media, or there's been manipulation of search algorithms to suppress ideas that don't align with the narrative. Corporate advertisers, this is interesting because there used to be a healthy skepticism for corporate power, and now corporations are lauded for exerting their power to eliminate speech, and they do so with much influence. Comedians, athletes, other influencers canceled because of truthful but offensive speech. And then, of course, the reactionaries will come in and say, two can play this game. Boom. Secular restaurant owner, financial penalties for you if you are open on Sunday. This is in the document, Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025 publication. It doesn't name restaurant owners. That was an example. It's employers, even secular ones. They must pay time and a half for being open on Sunday. So you get the reactionary response to all of this craziness, and this is of immense concern. And then you get a book like this. I could not get past the introduction of this one. I was listening to this on Audible. It's like, speak like a dragon on every page here. Step aside, secular humanism. We've got so-called Christian nationalism. It's very important to say so-called there, I believe, because if this is an ideology, which in this book it is, that is saying impose Christianity on people through coercive force, through the laws, all 10 commandments, that is not Christian, because Jesus said, my followers don't lord it over. So this is anti-Christian policies. This is what Antichrist did, right? How about the lamb-like beast? Why is it lamb-like? It's because it respects conscience. It's because it does not make laws respecting the establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So a lamb-like beast, a Christian nation is one that does not coerce Christianity, if we get our verbiage right here. But 45% of Americans believe America should be a Christian nation. This made big news. You dig into the data, of those 45%, 6% define Christian nation thus: America should have laws based on Christian beliefs, or that separation of church and state should not exist. So most of them by this phrase are not aligned with that. Most of them by this phrase are, I'd like to see Americans be Christians. I'd like to see people be moral and be nice to each other. When you look at asking Catholics, Protestants, Jews, and non-religious people, ask them, do you believe freedom of religion applies to all groups? You can see Protestants at 84% tied for the top next to also the non-religious. So that's not to say that this isn't a coming danger, but let's also be accurate in how we are presenting it as well. And then, of course, the dialectical interplay intensifies. When you hear that craziness, people go, Christian nationalism. And you get this sort of thing of, well, climate change, we're going to have Sunday over here. You can see it from both sides, right? Sunday being associated with climate change, and the Pope's encyclical, and climate lockdowns. The World Economic Forum's Yuval Noah Harari said, well, COVID wasn't an extremely deadly virus, and look what we were able to do. Shut down entire countries, stop all flights, and this should give us some idea of how we can better deal with climate change, lockdowns, etc. The International Energy Agency, climate change and car-free Sundays. There's so much more we could say, but I'm about out of time. Jesus said, the last days are like birth pangs. And you know, when you see these developments, he said, you know that the time is near when you see the signs of the times. 13 years ago, my wife learned we were pregnant. She was pregnant, and she knew, not from experience yet, but she knew that what was coming before the baby was born is immense pain, but to be followed by the greatest joy of her life. And she relished the fact. She relished the fact. So this is going back to do not fear. Jesus said, my peace I leave with you. Lift up your heads. Your redemption draweth nigh. We can relish the fact just the same as a mother anticipates the birth of that child, even though it goes through much pain. We know persecution is coming, and that will refine us and try us as gold. It's just a matter of enduring with the patient endurance of the saints and the strength that Jesus provides to us. So if you get nothing else out of a message about the signs of the times and things are happening, it's just stay connected to Jesus Christ. Live and move and have your being in him. It is his righteousness alone, our title to heaven and our fitness for heaven. And if we are thinking, oh no, this is outlandish, this is going to be years down, it couldn't possibly happen here. Don't underestimate the potential for a cataclysmic event to happen out of nowhere to catalyze changes overnight. And as you see on the graphic, and you remember from 2020, and then all of the craziness of 2021 and the tyranny of that dark time, you see changes can happen very quickly when people get into that mass formation. So simply, be ye also ready. And I can be ready in the righteousness of Christ right now. I can say, I claim the promise in your word, Lord Jesus, that he who cometh unto me, you will in no wise cast out. And I come to you and claim that promise. I want to come to you and not be cast out because I know you are coming soon. And if we claim that promise, it will open up the treasure house of all of God's promises. And at that moment, we are already as safe as though inside the city of God already. Every principle of our republic is being repudiated before our eyes. So what do we do when this once free nation is morphing into something unrecognizable in several directions? We simply say what Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. We look for a better country and heavenly. Don't become partisan. Stay principled. Speak the truth of real religious liberty as a witness to God's character and an entering wedge for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then shall the end come.